Hey Grace Church, Michael Campbell here, pastor of Family Ministries, just going over this Sunday's lesson that the kids are going through and how it applies to them, and most importantly, how it applies to us as parents, guardians, leaders. So we are going through the story of Jonah and how Jonah warned of God's judgment. Now, if we spend time contemplating what it means to belong to Jesus, the reality is it's kind of a mystery. And so how can we as sinners be forgiven and redeemed? Like, the more that we recognize the depth and darkness of our own sin, the greater we understand the magnitude of God's gift to us. And so through his son, he reached down to display his great love and mercy. And because of Jesus' wounds, we can have full and forever forgiveness. Now, the book of Jonah demonstrates that powerful truth on at least two occasions. So one is highlighted in Jonah's prayer in the midst of his desperation. Now, after running from God and being hurled into the sea, fully expecting to die at the bottom of the ocean, Jonah is swept up and swallowed by a great fish. And it's there that he cries out in his distress and that God answered him. And so Jonah, knowing the extent of his own sin and the issue of his own disobedience, cries out in desperation to the Father and finds that great comfort in a loving God who receives that desperate plea. And so later in Jonah chapter 3, we find a similar movement of God reaching down and bringing repentance among the people of Nineveh. In his grace, he relented from the looming punishment over them that they deserved in light of the change of heart. And so in both instances, the mercy and grace of God to withhold punishment due to vile sinners brought hope. And this hope ought to be ours today. Isaiah 59 chapter 1 says, "Indeed, the Lord's arm is not too weak to save, and his ears not too deaf to hear." And so much has changed in our world since Jonah's day, for sure. The Lord hasn't changed. He is not too weak or too distant to save. And no matter how far you or somebody else think you might have strayed, God's arm is still there, and he can still save and love and bring you his comfort. And what is really fascinating about this story is Jonah was really upset, not that God was wrathful or evil in ways. He wasn't mad at that, even though these people in Nineveh had destroyed Israel in the past. And no, Jonah was mad that God was going to be who he says he is, that he is slow to anger and he's compassionate and he's forgiving and merciful. Jonah knew, and the reason he didn't want Nineveh to be saved is because he knew that God could save even the evilest of people. And so maybe God's not the evil one in the Old Testament. Maybe we are the ones who are still struggling against those different sin patterns. And so these are some of the things that we're going through this weekend in each of the kids' classrooms. And so you'll notice on the thread some other questions, discussion points, memory verses to kind of help you talk as a family some of these gospel truths as you head into the weekend and after. But until next time, God bless and take care.